leave a message for me. So I decided I would have this relationship with his voicemail.
Uh-huh.
So I called him every 3 or 4 days for 3 months.
Yeah.
Telling him, we shot this today. We have to have Carter because of A, B, and C.
Wow.
Gotta let us do it. And then one day, my cell phone rang and this guy goes, howdy, this is Phil Wise. And I went, yeah, I'd know your voice anywhere. And he said, okay, Barbara, we've decided we're going to let you film. He said, you only have 20 minutes and February 14th is the date. Nah. Okay, Valentine's Day. So I went and I got the best chocolates I could find to give to President Carter. I'd been in South Sudan and the women had made these crystal hearts. And so I brought a red heart for the First Lady. And it was just an extraordinary interview. I mean, he doesn't like to talk very much about this because it's a failure.
And did he give you more than 20?
19 minutes and 47 seconds.
No shit.
Yeah.
See, that's so tricky about these guys. But even him, I mean, you know, obviously he could have given you more time.
They wouldn't let him because his handlers had everything sort of parsed out for him. But,
in terms of how to frame the thing?
Yeah, I couldn't even give him the chocolates and the heart because that would have come off my time. So I had to give it to one of his assistants to give to him.
So many years later, what were they afraid of, do you think?
I think making him go through this kind of anguish. And a friend of mine, Bernie Aronson, who was Mondale's speechwriter, said, Barbara, you're not going to get anything emotional out of this guy. He's just not going to do it. And so I said, yes, I will. I said, I'll bet you dinner. And so I went and he was really emotional. I mean, when I asked him about how did you feel when these 8 men died? What was that like for you? And he just said, I was heartbroken.
Right.
I said, what do you mean? What do you mean you were heartbroken? He said, well, my father died when I was very young. And he said, I never thought I'd have to go through those terrible feelings again. So it was very moving. I mean, I was like very moved to interview him and to be there with him. And also, you know, to film Vice President Mondale, who was one of the few at that time, you know, vice presidents who was really into foreign affairs. So it was a very interesting piece to do.
Yeah, no, and I thought you had all those recordings as well, which were great. You know, the sort of transmissions between the general, you know, who was, you know, the liaison for the military operation, and Vice President Mondale and President Carter. It was, yeah, I just, you know, I'd sort of, I don't know if I ever know. I guess no one really knows that story. We all know about the hostages. We
don't know about the mission. And it was also the beginning of Ted Koppel and Nightline. And, you know, I think Carter said to Ted Koppel, there were only 2 people who got anything out of this. And that was you with Nightline and Khomeini. You were the only 2 successes as far as I'm concerned.
So, like, when approaching, I mean, you've done like dozens of documentaries at this point, and I see, like, you know, I see the form evolving to a certain degree, you know, sometimes. As a form, it seems like everybody thinks they can do it, but they can't.
That I agree with. It's huge. It takes the life out of you, but yet gives you so much energy. I mean, it's sort of like you doing all these interviews where, you know, you put everything into it to try to get people to be relaxed and to spill everything, not go into the weeds, but really talk about things. And that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of thought. It takes a lot of research. It's, you know, to really be able to connect and to bring things out about people.
For sure. And like, how did you, like, what did you, like, you grew up in New York?
I grew up in Scarsdale, New York.
Ah, Westchester, right?
Westchester, in a home that was so filled with love. It was amazing. Everything was for the children. My parents were generous of spirit. You could talk to them about anything no matter what. And all they wanted was, happiness. And I think for us.
And they were supportive and encouraging. And what was your...
So supportive, so encouraging. I was just so lucky. I mean, I think that what happened is that because I was so protected as a child, I was able as an adult to go do things that were a lot more dangerous. And in effect, my son is the same way.
Huh.
I brought him up in a home that had so much love and so much protection and kept him in a bubble. And now he's an essential worker. He's a psychiatrist at Mount Sinai, during COVID. And he works 12 days out of 2 weeks and tells me unbelievable stories. He has to sometimes talk to families of people who are coming off the ventilator. And so it's sort of interesting, the turns that you take and the corners that you take, depending on your background.
And so was it like you grew up Jewish?
Jewish.
And
yes.
And what'd your dad do? What was
Reformed Jew.
Reformed Jew. You were early on the Reformed Jew thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like they didn't even exist until the 60s or 70s. Did they?
Oh no, my parents were Reformed Jews. I mean, we didn't celebrate Hanukkah. We had a Christmas tree, but it wasn't the religious part of the Christmas tree.
Right.
They just thought it was beautiful, along with my grandparents.
Yeah, my mom bought she had a couple Christmas trees. She liked Christmas lights, but I think we were categorically conservative Jews.
Okay.
For me, the difference was always like in the Reformed temple, it wasn't unusual for the cantor to play guitar, like.
Right. Anything goes. It's true. And lots of singing and, screwing around.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
it's true.
What'd your dad do?
My dad worked in textiles. He was a converter. And my mom was a housewife. And
a textile converter. What is that?
Yes. It means that you take material and you redesign it.
Oh, interesting.
So. Yeah.
But they were like intellectual people. They liked
yes, they read.
The arts.
They had lots of friends. The arts. My mother's first cousin was a guy named Murray Burnett who wrote a play called Everybody Comes to Rick's, which became Casablanca.
Did you know that guy?
Yes, I did. Yeah,
he was probably old by the time you remember.
He was old, but I still knew him. Yes.
It's funny when you grow up in Jewish families on the East Coast, and there's a gathering. There's always someone who's like 100 years old sitting in a chair. He
wasn't quite that old, but good. Let's keep them at 100.
Yeah.
I mean, this extraordinary woman that I know who was a film producer named Lucy Jarvis just died at 102 years old, and she was amazing. She was the first woman to ever go to the Soviet Union, to Russia, and film. She was the first woman to film in the Louvre and film in China. And she just had an extraordinary life. And, I think she was one of my mentors. She started unions at NBC for assistant editors and editors, just such a force. And she just died a few months ago. So.
Wow, well, that's a good run with a productive life.
And she was so great because we'd go out to dinner and she could care less what she said. Like she would say terrible things and scream them in the restaurant about Trump and everything else. And we would all just sit at the table and laugh hysterically as all the people around us, would be shocked, and the waiters, and we'd say, listen, she's almost 102 now. Yeah. She's going to say whatever she wants. You're lucky she's talking to you. So it was great.
Yeah, take it. She's seen things.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
What compelled you to get, when did you know that, somehow that, like, you didn't did you study film in college or no?
No, clinical psychology.
Huh. So why were you interested in that at that time? What was it that made you
interested in film or
no,
in
psychology?
Well, it's very similar to what I do now because it's what makes people tick.
No, I get it.
It's figuring out who they are. And my son is a psychiatrist.
No, I get it. But like, when you're younger, what sort of drives you to make that decision?
Well, it was during also the late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
Everybody was, marching against the war in Vietnam, really understanding and thinking that, our generation had all this power to change things and to do things. And for me to be able to really sink in and talk to people and see people who, they had given lobotomies to or given, because I had a 6-month work study program at Northeastern, which is in Boston. But it was right up my alley because I just wanted to understand the times, understand the people.
You talked to people that had lobotomies?
Yeah.
Where at the hospital?
At Medfield State Hospital. Yeah, because I had a 6-month work study.
And but at that time, were they still doing lobotomies?
They were just ending it. Frederick Wiseman's film came out, around that time, Tittycot Follies, and nobody was allowed to see it. I mean, I think because they said it took away the rights of the people in the institution. So I think it showed in one theater, and that really motivated me too.
Was that a documentary?
Psychology, yeah.
So that was the thing that provided the information that lobotomies were sort of inhumane?
Yes, quite. Yes, it did. You just saw how they were treated and what happened to them, and it was something that was readily done to people.
So it sounds like to me that, as you're moving towards some sort of clinical psychology degree or life, that movie was a turning point.
Yeah, that said to me, wow, this is something that I can do, and I can get out the word about who people are.
Facilitate change too, eh?
And facilitate change and just be on this unbelievable cultural, political, and humanitarian journey.
So you got a degree in clinical psychology?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
And then I came to New York.
Yeah.
And I was taking a course in cinema verite at the New School. And there was a woman named Angela who sat next to me, and she said, I work for these people named the Maisel brothers, and they're looking for an intern. There's no money. There's no nothing. Would you be interested? I said, are you kidding? I would love it.
You knew them already.
And I knew who they were. Yeah, of course. And so I started working with them, Albert and David, and they were so remarkable.
What were they working on when you took the job?
Salesmen.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
For door-to-door Bible salesmen. And I remember, for the premiere, because I felt I knew them so well from seeing the film, when I saw them at the premiere, I went up and gave them a big hug. And they went, who are you? And I had to try to explain to them what it was about.
Yeah.
So I worked for the Maisels. I also worked a little on Gimme Shelter. I was the person who carried David's audio tapes, and I was the human tripod for Albert because he got on the sound recordist guy's shoulders, Stan Goldstein, and my job was to hold them up so he could shoot.
At Altamont?
This was in Madison Square Garden. I didn't go to Altamont. That was the first show.
So the Madison Square Garden show, it's my understanding of that film that it was meant to be sort of a kind of a positive, sort of almost promotional documentary about the Stones.
Well, it was supposed to tell their story, but Albert and David didn't know what they were getting into when they went to Altamont. And
I don't think anybody did.
They also had problems with the Hells Angels as well.
They did?
Yeah. They went to see the Hells Angels because they had all this footage about them. And I think Albert got punched.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that seems relatively, they got off easy.
They did get off easy. Yeah.
Because I mean, the Angels are, they could have put a death threat on him. Who the hell knows?
Right,
But you were so you saw the Stones at Madison Square Garden in, what was that, 69, 66? What was it, 69?
Yeah, 69. And
good show?